So I don't hate One Piece. I have watched every single episode. I have read the manga. I was one of the best One Piece TCG players of all time. I love One Piece. But recently, ever since Gear 5 was released, I've had a really hard time uh staying interested in anything that has to do with Luffy. And I'm going to explain to you why I believe that Gear 5 has ruined the narrative tone of One Piece and why I think that is. So, I would say for the most part, Luffy has always been a very goofy character, right? And One Piece as a whole has always done a great job balancing the serious side of things as well as the goofy side of things and everything in between. And back in the old, I would say the old days, around chapter 800 with Dressrosa, when Luffy fights Doflamingo, there wasn't a whole lot of, goofing off with that arc, especially when it comes to fighting Doflamingo. It was a very serious, intense, impactful arc, right? And then we go back even further. We go to Sabaody Archipelago, which is one of my favorite arcs, and we see, Luffy's not really goofing around when it comes to the serious shit, right? He's not really goofing around when Kizaru comes in or Kuma comes back up or anything like that, or even when he punches the Celestial Dragon. He doesn't really goof around at that point. Same thing with Arlong, with Rob Lucci. There was not really a lot of goofing off. There was just a lot of fighting and a lot of just beating the fuck out of each other, and I think that was really cool. I think that was a really cool concept. Even when he fought Katakuri, he wasn't really like goofing off. But now, whenever Gear 5 was released, some of the villains, or I would say every single villain that he has fought, every single enemy that Luffy has fought, he's just been going into Gear 5 and he's just been laughing and goofing off and turning people into Looney Tunes. And I just don't think that, as someone that cares about writing and cares about the future of One Piece, I think that does a really bad thing for the tone of the series, because things are ramping up to a very climactic ending. One Piece doesn't have a lot of time left. It has maybe 5 years left at most, or maybe like 8 years left at most. I'm not entirely sure, but I'm pretty sure Oda said he only has like 5 or 6 years left. So we're nearing the finale of One Piece, and we're nearing these villains where you really can't goof off, right? Like, it would do the story a disservice if Luffy's just fucking turning him into fucking Looney Tunes, right? And there's like beating the shit out of him. So let's go back to the first fight that Luffy even did with Gear 5, and that's of course Kaido in the Wano arc. And obviously this video is gonna contain spoilers, so please, keep that in mind. But when Luffy was fighting Kaido, it was a really cool fucking. I didn't really like Wano that much, but when Luffy was fighting Kaido, it was really cool, right? And Kaido was this like insurmountable force that was just the strongest character that we had seen so far, and it felt like you couldn't even fucking damage him, right? This guy's like trying to kill himself by jumping off like a sky island or something. That's how he found Kid and Killer. Like, he's just this insurmountably powerful foe. And Luffy was getting his fucking ass kicked during that fight. Like, he literally like couldn't really even do anything until Gear 5 comes up, right? He obviously had the plot armor with the Gear 5, whatever. That's beside the point. Of course, the main character is going to have a little bit of plot armor. That's fine, right? But when he went into Gear 5, he straight up didn't even try, it feels like, to beat Kaido. He fucking demolished Kaido the second he went into Gear 5. He started turning him into a little fucking twister. Then he starts like shaking the ground and making the ground like curl up. And then he like launches the ground at Kaido. He literally just decimates him, right? It's crazy. And the whole narrative came down to, it was like this really intense fight. And it came down to Luffy just winning by a landslide from just some ability that we don't really understand. And I didn't really like that. I really was not really a huge fan of that at all. And I was like, okay, maybe that's just like the awakening. Maybe it'll get a little bit better whenever there's, I guess, different foes. Maybe the people that know now that he's Joy Boy, there's like some type of catch that Kaido just didn't really know, and that way it'll make it less, I guess, like broken, I would say. But we go from the fight being a spectacle of just like the Gear 5's dominance, with Kaido, of course, into now we go into Egghead. In Egghead, you find yourself against a familiar foe with Lucci. And then we think to ourselves, like, okay, like the last Lucci fight was awesome. Like, me personally, I wasn't a huge fan of it, but I still liked the fight, right? I think it was really cool. It was just dudes beating the shit out of each other. Like, what more could you ask for? It was a cool fight. Wasn't my favorite, but it was a really cool fight, a really cool arc. And it was Gear 2 Luffy versus Lucci. And now you got this Gear 5 Luffy versus Lucci, who is awakened now. And there wasn't any of that emotional resonance. There wasn't any of the fucking interest in the fight, because it felt like Luffy was just Looney Tuning everything and just beating the shit out of anyone, right? And then you basically resorted into Lucci fighting Zoro, which was a really cool fight, by the way. I really did like that. But that's Luffy's antagonist, right? That's not really Zoro's antagonist. So basically it made Luffy on like another power level where I'm fine with that. But like that legendary fight that we got with Rob Lucci, like Lucci isn't even in the same class as Luffy anymore. And it's because Gear 5, like without Gear 5, I think Luffy, even with just another version of Gear 5, if it had some type of like limitation, it feels like, yeah, it uses hockey quick or whatever, who cares, right? But it just ruins the that magic of fighting that Luffy had. Like Luffy was an underdog for almost every fight he's ever been in, and he used his powers and like brute forced his way through the fights. And now it seems like he's just, one, completely overpowered, and two, whenever he is fighting, he's in this like goofy ass like fighting mode where even if the situation is serious, he's still going to laugh and go until he just wins the fight, or he has to fucking recover his hockey. And the reason I bring that up is because when he fights Kizaru, aka Borsalino, after he swears he's gonna protect Vegapunk, Kizaru kills Vegapunk, and Luffy is like at first like really fucking pissed, and he's like squaring up with Kizaru, and he has like that look in his eye, and you're like, okay, this is what I like, this is cool, like this is the narrative, the tone that we're looking for whenever something very serious is going on in the show. And then 5 seconds later, Luffy's Looney Tunings again. And that is the best thing that I can say to explain it. But Luffy's just constantly just laughing shit off now. And it just makes it so like you just can't take anything serious, even really important characters to the series. Kizaru is a fucking Navy admiral, like one of the most fearsome foes in the entire series. And Luffy is just, after he killed his friend fucking Vegapunk, Luffy's just laughing it off and fighting with him. I just don't think that that's like a good thing narratively for the show or for the tone. And then worst of all, we get to Saturn, Saint Saturn, one of the 5 elders, right? And guess what? Right? And the 5 elders are supposed to be like these fucking otherworldly beings. They're supposed to be these like fucking demons, right? These demons that are just like these, very similar to Kaido, these like insurmountable, unknown creatures of vast power. And you get Luffy versus, I mean, he didn't really fight Saturn or really any of the elders in Egghead, but like the fact that no one died while they were in Egghead just felt a little stupid to me, right? And it just keeps going. One, I've already mentioned this in private conversations with friends, but I don't really think Oda is great with establishing tone to begin with. I think more people should have died. I think as much as people like Jinbei, I think Jinbei should have died to Big Mom and Whole Cake Island to really put some weight into the show. But the fact that no one died in Egghead, on top of the fact that Luffy's just fucking clowning around against the 5 fucking elders who are like should be the strongest characters in the entire show, if not like one of them, and they looked like fucking goofballs into Luffy, right? And I just think that the Looney Tunes aspect ruins the emotional narrative of the show. And I think there are constant examples of fights in the past that were fucking badass, right? There was the crocodile fight. There was the Arlong fight, Doflamingo. There was all these really cool fights. And we get these like stupid goofball fucking Looney Tunes spectacle fights where now we can't even really feel the weight behind what's going on because we're just constantly seeing Luffy not take the weight of what's going on into account when he is fighting. And I know that's part of the story. Luffy being goofy has always been goofy, but I think that One Piece should do a better job of balancing the demeanor of Luffy when he's fighting, even if he is in Gear 5, and I just don't think they've done a good enough job doing that. But what do you guys think? Am I crazy? Am I smoking crack? Let me know in the comments below. I'll catch you guys later.